What's up, lords and ladies? Welcome back to another video on this channel. So in today's video, I decided to do a video that's been requested quite some time now, and that is a green tree python care video. Now, before I get into the green tree python care video, I just want to put out there that even though I'm putting a care video together, I do feel like I'm going to be missing out a couple of things because there's so much things that go into taking care of a green tree. So I might be doing a part 2 or a part 3 to this video as well. So if you're planning on getting a green tree python, I really recommend you guys do your own research and look for other care videos as well, or care sheets. There's actually a podcast that I used to listen to. I still listen to it from time to time, that gave me a lot of good information when I first wanted to get into green tree pythons, and that is Marilius Python Radio, I believe. I'll put the link in the description down below, but they're a really good podcast that they talk about green tree python. They talk to vets, they talk to different type of breeders as well. So if you're looking into getting a green tree python, don't just use one video, this video, as your guide and be like, well, time to get a green tree. So what I decided to do in this video is actually take apart my green tree python's enclosure and put it all back together, because I do need to clean it and disinfect it. So I figured, why not make a care video on how to set up a green tree python's enclosure. So what I'm going to be doing is taking it apart, putting it back together, and giving you guys some tips on how to care for them. So with that being said, let's get started with this video. Let's go.
Yeah, right. Bust down, Tatiana. Yeah, right. Bust down, Tati. Ay, ay. Bust down, Tatiana. I wanna see you bust down. Pick it up now, break that shit down. Speed it up, then slow that shit down on the gang. Bust it, bust down, bust down, bust down, Tatiana. Bust down, Tatiana. I wanna see you bust down. Pick it up now, break that shit down. Speed it up now, slow that shit down on the gang. Bust down, bust it, yeah. Bust down, bust down. Blue face, baby, yeah, I'm every woman's fantasy. Mama always told me I was gonna break hearts, I guess her fault. Stupid, don't be mad at me. I wanna see you bust down. Bend it all over on the gang. Make that shit clap. She threw it back, so I had to double back on the gang. Smacking high off them drugs. I tried to tell myself 2 times was enough. Then a nigga relapse on the deadlocks. Ain't no running, Tatiana, you gon' take these damn strokes. You know I beat it up now with some murder scene. Keep shit playing, Tatiana, you ain't even heard of me.
Okay, so as you can see, I built and put together my green tree python's enclosure. Now, what we have in here is pretty straightforward. It's nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy, everything you could find, you just need to put together. But green tree pythons really require a nice perch. So the very first thing that I did was actually make these perches for my green tree python, and it's pretty easy. All I did was get a PVC pipe at the hardware store, and then I just burnt it with a torch and just like burnt it completely, so it almost gives it that wood effect. And at the same time, I made little tiny holes right here so I could put these suction cups, and they basically will stick onto the glass, and that's not going anywhere. So I find these to work just as good. Now, if you are getting a heavier snake for some reason and want to use this same method, I would not recommend using the suction cup. Even if you're spraying down your enclosure, I always try to avoid the suction cups because these do tend to slide down if they do get wet. But it works great for a green tree python, and it's been working for mine. Now, inside of this enclosure, as you can see, there is some plants. You could add just about anything. At the end of the day, any snake that you put plants and greenery in, the snake is just gonna poop on it, let's be real. So having less plants in there is probably beneficial because it's less cleaning for you, but you do want to have something in there so it's it gives them that shelter kind of look, so it's not too exposed. That's the only downfall of having these glass enclosures, is that if you don't have enough coverage, the snake feels too exposed and it will stop eating or it'll feel stressed. So So what I decided to do is actually put Eco Earth as the substrate. Now there's different types of substrates that you could use. I like using a mixture, but in this case I just put Eco Earth because I didn't want to waste substrate on an enclosure that I'm not really going to use right now. But Eco Earth holds humidity pretty well. It's just a like dirt type of substrate. As you can see, it's like basically dirt. So you really want to give your green tree python a humidity of about 80%. So it should reach in there about 80%, and of course give it some dry period. So what I would normally do is I would have a fogger set up inside of the enclosure and connected to a timer. And once the timer basically turns it on, it'll turn it on for about 15 minutes, and then it'll turn off, then it'll turn back on, then it'll turn off. And then at nighttime, I'll give it a dry period. So this fogger right here is actually acting as the humidifier or the humidity gauge in here. So whenever I don't spray my enclosure down, I could always rely on this fogger to provide some humidity. Now, when it comes to green tree pythons, the very important thing about them is of course their humidity, but also their temperature. So you're looking at a temperature of 86 to 88. So if you notice, most reptiles require a temperature that's a little bit more than 88 and 86. 86 is almost like my room temperature right now. If I was to get the gauge right now, it would probably be 80 in my room. So you definitely want to have some sort of heat source in here that provides the heat and that you could gauge it. What I would recommend is actually a heat panel. So a heat panel looks something like this. Mine's actually broke, so I don't have it right now on me, but I did order one, and it's coming in soon. But the heat panel works pretty well, and you could connect it to a thermostat. So once you get a heat panel, you could connect it to a thermostat like this, and that would allow you to control the gauge a lot more. Now, heat panels don't have any light, so you might want to add a light in there. If you're having plants, you might want to add a small wattage UVB in there to provide some light to the plants. But aside from that, you could get away with just having a heat panel. A heat panel is basically a heat mat, but on top of the screen. Now, if you notice, I'm using the Exoterra enclosure, and as we all probably know, these mesh things are not the greatest. So what I normally would do is actually cover it with a piece of plexiglass. So as you can see, this plexiglass would fit perfectly in here, and boom, now we have some basically coverage, and that would keep in all the humidity a little bit longer. Now, I do let the humidifier run, and I did basically modify it so I don't have to cut a hole. So all I did really was just get a bottle, cut a hole, stuck in the tube. Once the tube was connected, I could just set this right on top. And normally what I would do for this PVC or this plexiglass is actually cut a perfect hole. This will sit right on top like this, and it would basically, I wouldn't have to drill a hole inside of the screen. So I still could save the screen. It still gets a little bit rusty, so over time you do want to probably replace it to just having plexiglass. So you do have to have some handy work or do some modifications to it if you want to use a Exoterra enclosure. Okay, so green tree pythons are just an amazing snake. All they do is basically stay on this perch. Literally, my green tree python probably stays here about 95, or I would say 99.9% of the time would just stay here. It would drink water from here, it would eat from here, it would also even poop from up here. Yeah, it's kind of weird seeing the green tree python basically just live on this perch. Now, when it comes to temperament, these guys tend to vary. It's just like any other reptile. Some reptiles are a little bit more friendlier than others. Some tend to be a little bit more mean. This one is kind of in between. She has her moments like right now where she doesn't care, and then she has their other moments where she's all over the place and wants to attack me. Now, green tree pythons are just like any other snakes, they eat rodents to basically survive. They don't eat carrots, they don't eat any type of veggies, they mostly eat rodents. And what I normally do is get something a little bit smaller than its size. So if the girth of the snake is about this big, I would get something about that size. For other snakes, you could get away with giving it something bigger, but for green tree pythons, they because they're always sitting on their perch and they're basically not moving as much, they might just start to become a little bit more fatter, or they actually might regurgitate their food, and that could actually do a lot more harm than good to your snake. So if you do plan on getting one of these beautiful snakes, they come in different types of forms, and believe it or not, these guys, when they're smaller, sometimes they're either yellow or they're red. So they would turn into this greenish looking snake. Some of them have a little bit more blue, some of them are actually blue, which is crazy. So there's so many different variations. Obviously the price varies. I would always recommend for you guys to look for captive bred green tree pythons instead of getting, you know, the farm raised or the wild caught, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be kind of bringing in something to your collection or to your room that might carry parasites, or you might actually have to do extra work and taking it to the vet and everything, which at the end of the day, if you're bringing imported animals, it's gonna kind of be a little bit of a thing where you're not sure whether or not that snake is gonna live or is gonna thrive. So you can do it, but honestly, I would just stick to doing captive or bred reptiles. Now, I've owned Mona Lisa for about 3 years now, so I'm pretty sure I have things to the T. But the thing is, with green tree pythons, you really need to manage their husbandry. So if the temperature in your room is too cold, or if it's too hot, or if it's not humid enough, that could really affect your snake. It would stop eating, it would stop pooping, it would stop drinking, and it would stop functioning basically. So you really want to take care of the husbandry before you even take care of the snake. So before getting the snake, get the husbandry, get the setup going. So how I have it right here, check the temperatures all the time for about maybe a month or so, get a routine going, and then get a green tree python like this. So it's not one of those snakes where it's like, hey, I could just get it and then I'll get everything and put it together. You really need to set up the husbandry and get it on point and get a routine going for these guys before getting them. Now, when it comes to handling a green tree python, I don't really handle my green tree python. As you can see, she's still on her perch. I just took it off and she's still kind of resting here. I don't handle her as much as you may think, and when I do, I always wait until she is done digesting her food and she is done shedding. So I don't really like to disturb her much and bug her. In this case, this is probably the most I've ever handled her this whole entire year making this video, and I'm not even holding her. This is her on the perch, so that's a little bit crazy. They're a little bit more of like that display cool looking animal that you just leave alone and you just look at them and just admire them from a distance. Now, one thing about green tree pythons is that these guys tend to sometimes get dehydrated quickly. And a way that you could actually check whether or not these guys are dehydrated is actually pinching their skin. So if you pinch their skin and it stays up for longer than it should, so let's kind of, she does not like that. So as you could see, the skin bounced back fairly slowly, so she is really good. If it stayed up a lot longer than that, then she is dehydrated. So she is just gorgeous. Look at her. She has like a nice little tiny belly. She has a nice little tiny tail. Now, green tree pythons barely ever get off of their perch. So if you do see them, you know, going on the ground, it actually might not be humid enough in your enclosure, or it might be too hot, or something might be going on with them. So definitely having them either on the ground can be a sign of your green or something going on with your green tree python. But it doesn't always mean something bad, but it's definitely something going on with your green tree python if it tends to go on the ground too often. Okay, so hopefully you guys did learn a few things about green tree pythons. I'm definitely gonna be doing a part 2 to this video, because I know I'm gonna be editing this video. I'm gonna be like, I forgot something. And it was at this moment he realized he forgot to edit out the video of him busting it down. All right. Yeah. See what I mean? I won't be editing something I'm going to forget, or I'm going to remember something that I forgot to put in this video. But what I'm going to be doing is definitely keeping you guys update on my reptiles. So be sure to hit that notification button, and also be sure to follow me on Instagram as well. And I know there's a few of you guys who watch my videos who have not subscribed. You know, Lord the Lion knows everything. They don't call me the Lord for no reason, okay? Jesus. So subscribe if you haven't. I'm Lord the Lion. Keep the blood pumping, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.
You gotta hit that notification, hit that notification, hit that notification button, baby. You gotta hit that notification, hit that notification, hit that notification button, baby.